As an adolescent of the 1990s, I will never forget NBC in their glory days. During these years, NBC created series that were watched by millions and millions of Americans every week, and are still revered today as some of the greatest series of all time. I will never forget my teenage self hunkering down every Thursday night at 8 o'clock for Friends, Seinfeld, ER, and then falling asleep later than normal at 11 p.m. after having been through the ringer. There has never been a period of television as great as this. But beside all those wonderful shows, NBC has truly had some legendary moments over the years. So now it's time to take a look at what the Peacock network has to offer. Here we go with the 10 greatest events in NBC history. Before I begin, there are some ground rules. First and foremost, this is exclusively NBC events only. While there have been many legendary TV moments that were broadcast on multiple networks simultaneously, these were events that were solely broadcast on NBC during their initial airings. Rule number 2, no Super Bowls. If I included Super Bowls, this list would be nothing but football, as that would probably take all 10 spots. Rule number 3, no news events, as they're usually covered by all the networks. If a news event was specific to NBC, then it would qualify, but there are no cases of that on this particular list. Rule number 4, one event or episode per series. This one hurts me, but this isn't NAM, there are rules. And now here we go with the main list. Number 10, The Marriage. The Marriage was a sitcom that was broadcast live on NBC in 1954 starring real-life married couple Hugh and Jessica Tandy. What makes this series so special is that it is believed to be the first show to be broadcast in color. Although color wouldn't be standard for many more years, it is cool to think about its humble beginnings even in the earliest days of television. Of course, NBC is most known today for its colorful peacock logo, a symbol of the network's foray into what is considered the standard today. Number 9, Seinfeld, the finale. As polarizing as it was, there was nothing more talked about on May 14, 1998 than the series finale of Seinfeld. The gang's antics finally catch up with them, and they are sent away to prison for 9 years just for being awful humans. Never has a series finale been built up so hard and then be so utterly polarizing, with some calling the finale an apt way to end Seinfeld and others calling it unfunny and a real downer. Having said all that, the episode garnered so much hype that ad spots sold for $1 million, the first time that ever happened for a show that wasn't a Super Bowl. Its quality as a finale is always going to be debated heavily by fans, but there is one thing that is for certain: you aren't going to forget it anytime soon. Number 8, An Early Frost. This made-for-TV movie, which premiered in November of 1985, was the first film to really discuss AIDS on a level that hadn't really been seen yet to this point. Aidan Quinn plays a lawyer who becomes HIV positive after his partner admits to sleeping around. His life spirals as a result, his relationship with his parents is destroyed, and others won't want to be near him due to the idea that people still thought HIV was spread like a common cold. This incredibly important film was seen by 34 million households, nominated for 14 Emmys, and won 3 of them. Number 7, ER Goes Live. I laid down ground rules for a reason, because this list cannot be 10 ER episodes. I wish it could, but it can't be. It just can't be. I had to make the tough decision between whether Season 2's Hell and High Water or Season 4's premiere Ambush deserved to be on this list, considering both episodes earned over 42 million viewers. But after great thought, I am giving Ambush the nod simply because it was a live production. Live TV is an invisible art form. If it goes right, you will never notice. If it goes wrong, even slightly, it will become incredibly noticeable. Somehow the cast and crew were able to almost flawlessly pull off not 1, but 2 live full-length episodes of high-intensity, high-drama series ER, one for the West and one for the rest. The episode introduced us to Dr. Corday, continued the story of Dr. Green being attacked in the garage, and kicked off the drama of Dr. Morgenstern, played by the great William H. Macy, having heart problems. The episode, directed by TV legend Thomas Shalami, was in no way bastardized for the sake of the live broadcast, and set the bar unrealistically high for future live scripted shows. Again, it pains me to kick Hell and High Water off this list, considering it's one of the greatest TV episodes of any series ever. But as someone who has worked in live TV for 20 years, I gotta stand by Ambush as one of NBC's finest moments. Great job, everyone involved. Number 6. Hugh Grant meets Jay Leno. Hugh Grant is to romantic comedies as Robert De Niro and Al Pacino are to crime dramas. The actor had such a charming persona that there was nothing not to love about him. But Grant was arrested, famously after being caught soliciting a prostitute in 1995. Soon after his release, while promoting the movie 9 Months, Grant went on to Jay Leno's Tonight Show, where Leno asked the question, "What the hell were you thinking?" Of course, it's arguable that the timing for all the publicity was quite suspicious, seeing how his newest movie was about to come out. But really? 9 months? If that was really true, that's the hill you'd be willing to die on? 9 months? Okay then. Number 5. The first episode of Saturday Night Live. Again, this absolutely pains me to no end that I had to lay down rules, but one episode gets the nod for being the most notable event on the most historic television show in history, and after weighing the many options, I would have to say that the premiere episode is the most notable one. Why not go back to where it all began in all of its coke-fueled weirdness? It revolutionized sketch comedy, and over the years has provided some of television's funniest, saddest, most poignant, and downright awkward moments that we've ever seen. George Carlin blazing, perhaps literally, through his stand-up routine as host, 2 outstanding music performances from Billy Preston and Janice Ian, the first Weekend Update with Chevy Chase, so many sketches, short films, it was the catalyst for what would be decades of some of the greatest entertainment ever provided. Number 4. The debut of Meet the Press. All political slants aside, Meet the Press is a show that debuted in the formative year of 1947 and is still on the air to this day. Meet the Press found its way over from radio 2 years after the end of World War II. As the name suggests, the show started out as a press conference type show before adapting into what it is today. Arguably, the show's best moderator was Tim Russert, who moderated the show from 1991 until his untimely death in 2008. During that time, Russert really modernized the show and really put interview shows of any kind on the map. Remember, if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press. Number 3. Gone with the Wind. For the then record-setting cost of $5 million, NBC bought the rights to air Gone with the Wind on the network as a one-time movie extravaganza. Often considered one of the greatest films of all time, Gone with the Wind is a classic Civil War romance film. Regularly released in theaters, the film was constantly exposed to new audiences, keeping it relevant for decades. Thus, it was a huge deal when NBC bought the rights and showed the movie on television. They decided to split the film into 2 parts due to its epic length, with both parts being viewed by 47 million people, at the time becoming the most watched event in television history up to that point. Although the movie is easily and widely accessible today, even on your own telephones, imagine in 1976, before home media was common, how great it would be to finally experience one of the greatest movies of all time from the comforts of home. Number 2. One for the Road. In a time when television was being dominated by wholesome family sitcoms which centered around parents raising their kids around a big, beautiful suburban living room, Cheers took place in a bar in Boston, and gave us the stories of some of the best multi-dimensional characters we've seen on TV to this point. When it ended, people came out to say goodbye by the millions. One for the Road was a subtle episode that just very calmly and casually wrapped up the story with no bells and whistles and nothing quote-unquote extra to get people talking. When Sam Malone was faced with revisiting his past with a returning Diane, Rebecca moving on with a new husband, Norm casually letting Sam know that he's back where he belongs, and Sam, amidst all of his disappointments, still calling himself the luckiest son of a bitch alive. One for the Road wasn't critically beloved when it first aired, but was viewed by 42 million households, or approximately 93 million people, and has since grown to be considered one of the greatest series finales of all time. It also created one of the greatest spin-offs of all time, with Frasier. And the number one greatest event in NBC history, Johnny bids a heartfelt goodnight. It's never easy to say goodbye, and usually it can be super awkward. But for the king of late night, Johnny Carson's final episode of The Tonight Show was without question one of the most emotionally charged moments in television history. 50 million people stayed up way past their bedtime to watch the legend say goodbye for the last time. After Carson retired, he made very sporadic appearances, choosing instead to live a quiet life away from the business. Every single late night host since has owed everything to Carson, and they'll be the first to tell you that. Thus, when Johnny Carson said goodnight for the final time, it is generally considered to be the most iconic moment in the history of NBC.